Today we have got the Canyon Aeroad CFR edition. I've ridden the previous version, so a lot of my comparisons are going to be between this bike and the previous generation. And my goal is to try and give you the best sense I can as to what the bike feels like to ride. That's my goal in this video. One thing I can tell you already, before I get into any of the chapters, which you can find below, this bike is already more refined than the previous version. I'm enjoying it a lot more. I'll get into more details in the individual chapters. I think this is what the previous version of the Aeroad was always meant to be. What's this thing like on the flats and the rolling terrain? Well, what do you expect? It's absolutely incredible. The whole time I felt like I was just on top of the gear. So on the way back it was a headwind all the way home, which is normally brutal, but the bike just felt like it was just cruising along at a normal speed. But on the way out I had a tailwind the whole way, and I'm gonna say I felt like Matthew van der Poel. It just cruised so quickly. Not only that, when you get to the rolling sections on this bike, I feel like you save a lot of energy when you're on the downhill and the bottom of the next up. So when you start to hit that crest of the next roll, I feel like I have less lactate in my legs and more power to get over the top, meaning I hold more speed just because this bike feels that aerodynamic. So yeah, it seems like I'm using less energy. And like I said, it doesn't matter where you are, you just feel like you're on top of the gear on this bike. You can just hold the speed, keep pushing the power out. And when you're on the dead flats, it doesn't feel like you need as much power as it does to ride other bikes. I think Chris from the Nero show put it quite nicely. Some bikes it feels like, you know, when you're catching a wave and you're on a surfboard and it feels like, oh, I'm picking up speed. This bike feels like you're always just catching that wave and just picking up speed. Whereas other bikes it feels like, you've just lost the wave. This bike has so much speed. It's like you've just had an amazing dessert and someone comes to you, oh, there's more. Would you like seconds? Yes, yes I would. The handling on this version isn't too dissimilar from the previous one. I mean, of course, it's the same bike, just updated. But to me, I think this one handles a little bit better in my mind. Maybe just because it's been a year since I've ridden the previous one, I've just forgotten what it feels like. But this bike is clearly designed to be ridden at high speeds. The faster you go on this thing, the more stable it becomes. At slow speeds, the front end is fairly twitchy. It's not bad at all. It's not like it's going to throw you off, but it's very sensitive to very light inputs. Whereas the faster you get on the bike, it seems like those inputs get a bit more smoothed out on the turn. One thing I will say on the behavior of this bike is that it's still, once you have chosen a line, it wants to hold that line through the corner. So if you see a pothole all of a sudden, it doesn't want you to come off it and then go back into the line. It likes to hold the line. Now, this doesn't mean that it can't. It doesn't lock you into that position. You can turn. It's just that the bike doesn't like it as much. So essentially, I'd say it kind of likes to ride on rails. It likes you to choose a line, hold the line, and then it's really stable on that line and doesn't like to come out of it. But of course you can if you want to. It's a modern road bike. It still handles pretty damn well. I thought that the bike was going to be fairly hard to ride out the saddle, you know, if you want to take drinks or remove a jacket or whatever. But no, it was perfectly stable when I was out the saddle. Very easy to ride. I do think there is still a bit of a learning gradient here on this bike. Some bikes you get on and straight away you just click and connect with them with the way your inputs, the way the bike responds to them. Whereas this bike, I think it would take you 3 to 5 rides. It's not going to take long before you get the handling absolutely dialed in. But I think there is a learning curve if you've never ridden an Aeroad before. Okay, it's time to talk about the climbing. Good. It's much better than the previous version. Once again, I think stiffening up the rear triangle here has done this bike wonders. I'm finding I'm spending much more time out the saddle when you're in those steeper gradients, like 8-10% plus, like you always get here in the UK. And I've been enjoying it much more. The previous generation, I felt like I only had propulsion from the pedals when I was in the saddle. It didn't feel like I had anything out the saddle, but this one does. Now, once again, it's not a climbing bike. It doesn't feel flicky, doesn't feel snappy underneath you, but it just lets you spend more time where you want to be compared to the previous version. Essentially, it's let me climb on the bike how I want to climb on the bike. For the next video, I'm going to make one change to these, which I'm hoping is going to make the climbing even better on this thing and make the bike even more electric. Yeah, no longer feels sluggish. It feels how most modern bikes want to climb. Sprinting is so much better on this bike than the previous one. It feels so much more planted to the ground. And for the old frame, I used some unfortunate words like the frame felt dead, it felt sluggish. But no, this version is definitely better. Whether that's a slightly shallower wheel or the changes they've made to the rear end, I don't know. Probably a bit of both. But it feels so stable, it's not skittish. It doesn't jump around when you sprint. You feel planted to the floor and you feel like you can use all the power that you've got. Essentially, you could be absolutely knackered and most bikes be twitching around all over this place. But this rear wheel, when you're sprinting, stays planted. Whilst I've got you at this lovely old English country estate, let's have a chat about the comfort. Interestingly, on the previous version, it was my bum end that I was thinking about more. Because the seat tube was so deep on the previous version, it made it feel like a time trial bike. There was kind of zero shock absorption. But this time, the rear end, I'm not thinking about it that much. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't absorb bumps like an endurance bike. Like the bigger ones, they still kick through the frame on the back. But the front end doesn't feel like there's been much refinement in the comfort. I'm definitely feeling a lot more chatter through my hands. I'm about 2 hours into my ride now and I'm starting to notice it a bit. And I think for the longer rides on this Canyon Aeroad is where you're going to start to notice the comfort, especially in the UK here. I do think for the next generation of Canyon Aeroad, I would like them to build in more compliance into the frame. I know I'm only running a 28 on the rear and a 25 on the front. That's what it comes as its stock setup, which is how I like to ride it. But the reason I want to see them build in a little bit more is because I don't think you can make this bike any quicker. I mean, it's as fast as you can get it at the moment, especially with the current UCI rules. So I'd like to see them build in something that makes the bike nicer to ride over those longer durations. There's one thing to note that's very important when I am talking about side winds. I weigh 88 kilos. Now, I'm sure that's a lot more than most of you. So do take that into consideration. The side winds will probably affect a lot of you more than it does me. Well, side winds is one of the things that the previous generation really did suffer with. And I think it was those 60mm deep wheels that really pulled you out of your line when you're cycling. I think going down to the 50mm here has been really positive for the side winds. I still don't think these wheels specifically are great in the side winds though. And I reckon this is also part to do with those really deep tubes that this bike has on there. But to me, it feels like the old version, when you got hit with a side wind, it would buffer you and it would push you off your line. This version, it doesn't push you off the line, but when you try to lean into the wind, it feels like the bike really doesn't want to push back into position. So if you're getting a side wind coming in this way, the bike really does not want to lean into that side wind. It just feels like it's stuck on the line that you're riding. I gotta say, the bike feels like a lighter bike underneath you than the previous generation. I know I'm on the CFR version here, which of course is the lightest version, but in my mind, because they've beefed up the rear triangle here with a little bit more carbon to make this whole area a little bit stiffer, it makes the bike feel a little bit sharper. It makes, especially when you're out the saddle, so it just feels a little bit more nimble on that back end. So yeah, it makes the bike feel like it's lighter underneath the body. Now, if you watch my walk around video, I weighed this in at about 7.6 kilos with pedals on, which is for a top end aero bike in size large here, my size. For my one super modification that I'm going to do in the next video, I'm going to tease you through this video. This bike becomes even lighter. It goes right down to 7.3 kilos for a top end bike here, as aero as this thing. I would normally stop for a pint of Coke, but pub's closed. Basically, I've stopped here because I want to talk about the shop window factor. And the shop window factor is, do you look at yourself in the shop windows when you cycle past? And I think it's important because you want to feel cool on your bike. You want to feel like you're going fast. You want to feel like you look awesome. And yeah, let's be quite honest. This thing looks mega. Look at it right now, it's beautiful. Really love the new logos and the paint jobs on there. I think personally I prefer the white one to this black one, but it's still a pretty looking paint job. And yeah, when you cycle past, people should look at the bike because it looks awesome. So it's got bags of short window factor. Which brings me on to the fun factor. Yep, spades of fun factor again. I've literally had a smile on my face the whole day. Even when I'm dodging potholes, the road's rough and stuff, I still feel like I'm going fast at all times on this bike. It's just got speed. And it's a bike that makes me feel really fast. So yeah, tons of fun, this thing. And done. I'm going to put the ride stats right here-ish so you can see what I've done today. I have ridden the bike yesterday as well, but man, I've got to say, it's been a fun ride. It is really fun bike to ride. The changes that they've made to this bike around the rear triangle, I think have been super positive. It makes it much nicer to climb with, it makes it much nicer to be able to saddle with, and it makes the sprinting feel more planted and more exciting. So really positive changes for the bike here, and I think it's turned it from a great bike into an excellent bike. Who is this bike for? Definitely for someone who wants to go fast all of the time. This bike, it doesn't ride as well when you're going slowly. It rides better, it handles better, feels better when you're up to speed. So definitely for the racers or the fast group riders who tend to hold some pretty high speeds. So anyway guys, there's the bike. If you have any specific questions that you think I've missed in this video, please put them in the comments below, or you can always message me privately on Instagram over here. Tomorrow is going to be my third ride on this bike and my final ride, and I'm going to be changing something out that should make the bike even better than it is at the moment. So stick around for that as the next video. Anyway guys, I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. See you in another one.